hit the go live button.
Yes, you did.
So we're going to go live.
I think we
On
already
the
are live.
internet. Yes.
Hello.
Now, before we begin, we need to do a copper disclaimer. This is a new thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We have to insist this is not a video for children YouTube. Please don't fine us £40,000. To that extent, this is beer.
This is alcohol.
Yes. See, no children should be anywhere near it. Also, just in case there is a child watching this and the parents are in the adjacent room, your kid's watching porn, get them to change the channel. That should do it. What?
I'm in agreement. I'm
Hello.
also very full.
Full?
Yes, from eating.
Oh yes,
so
yes,
much.
A bit of a rush to get our dinner down and get set up and stuff. Right.
Fortunately, I have a loose t-shirt on.
Welcome to Pear of Geeks, the RPG discussion show, where you can take part by typing in the chat. Now we have a full agenda tonight that I've completely forgotten.
Well, it's a good job you came up with it all.
Yes. I'll go look it up.
Okay, please do. Meanwhile, hello Scott and hello Ronnie.
Hello.
Hello to the both of you.
There's some Patreons we must
Yes,
thank.
we must as well.
Before we get on with the actual show, and I'll give you the rundown of what's coming up in just a moment.
Yep. But first, happy Black Friday, if you're one of those people.
Doing that, like Black Friday, it's just Britain.
Some people do it.
But, I mean...
Some people like to get trampled on.
It's taken over in Britain, and it just makes no sense at all. Mm-hmm. It's the day after Thanksgiving. We don't have Thanksgiving, because that would literally be celebrating death of English people.
Mm. Okay, then, happy Dragon Meet tomorrow.
Topics are Corporation Discord. That won't take long. Casino encounter ideas. Charitable goblins.
I don't know what that is.
And how egalitarian should the role of players in running the game be?
Okay.
Right, let's thank the people that make this show possible.
You just... Shall I get them down off the thing? Okay. Bear with. I thought you wanted to do another cheers. That was confusing. Right, so these are the most awesome people in the world, as you can see from our official watermarked poster. They are Russell Higgins, Jolly Mangina, Mark Threlfall, Brandon Fishwick, Amber Dave Poirier, Fuke Enterprises, Nate Hanshin, AJ, Philip Bates, Elizabeth Chipredictical, and David Gaskin. Thank you, everybody, so much for this. And if you want to join them in helping us keep this channel alive, then head on to patreon.com/Pear of Geeks.
Mm-hmm. Now, quick Con+2 prize update. Almost everyone's parcels are posted. The only exceptions now are the awkward, very awkward, the incredibly awkward
ones. We've done the awkward ones. It's now the stupidly awkward,
so there was
bulky,
one
big
that
boxes.
was 2.2 kilos international. Now, what you may not know is if a package is over 2 kilos on international, it costs over double to send as if it was under 2 kilos. So I took this one to the post office and they were like 2.2 kilos. And I'm like, oh. Alright, I'll go home and repackage it. Mm-hmm. So there's that one, but I need to find another. But yeah, anyway, not done that yet. There's another one which does not fit in any jiffy bag or box. Or I need to find more boxes. I was looking in the post office today at the boxes it could fit in. There was only one. That was the gigantic box. It's not that big, but it would only fit in a gigantic box. The box itself was like £3, and the God knows what that would be to post. So So what I need to do is I need to order people's Christmas presents so I get more boxes.
Basically.
And I think that's Ash is got most of their prizes, but one single thing is absolutely huge. We did say during the stream that we might send the big 5-headed dragon out of the box. Ash very much wanted it in the box, probably resale value. So I basically sent everything else, and then I think what I'm gonna do is get some of that sort of packing paper you can get, which we can get in town. So next time I'm in town, I pick some up. That's it. Everything else is sent, and should be with people soon, depending on where they are in the world. So that's it. Your prizes should be with you soon. Now, Corporation Discord, can you pass me books?
Yes, but I'm very full. It's a bit of an effort. How many of these?
That'll do. So, our favourite RPG. This is the RPG that is responsible for our relationship.
You said our favourite RPG. I mean, it's one of my favourites, but Call of Cthulhu is kind of my favourite.
This RPG is responsible for our relationship.
Yes.
And therefore is our favourite RPG because, like, without
It's our
this,
favourite love RPG.
it's my favourite cyberpunk RPG.
Yes.
Let's put it
Definitely
that way.
that. Yes.
And they've just started up a Discord server.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Which I
didn't
to
put the
go
link
on
for
to.
in the description.
No, you didn't, you plonker.
Oops. So anyway, that's just kicking off. James Norbury
plug
himself is going to be running a sort of a play-by-post game.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. I thought that all the places had gone.
They have now.
Oh.
I did say go sign out.
I know, but
And I'm playing an EI agent, so I've been skimming through this one, which is the Eurasian Incorporated Sourcebook.
Cities is good.
Yes. I love EI as a corporation. It's just what's your superpower? I'm rich. It's so British.
Yes, very British.
Ruled by the
Slash German and possibly a bit of French in there.
Now the interesting this got me thinking about play by post because I've done a few games where I've like played by forum. I did one postal game back in the day when it was actual post. It got me thinking about that as a format, and how good is it, and what's the difference with role playing in a play by forum or text based way? Have you ever done it?
Yes,
And
I
what-
ran a play-by-post game.
Oh, how did it go?
Very slowly.
That's true. It does move slow.
It was frustrating as hell how slow it was,
Mm.
and it was good to ease in because I was a very new DM and I thought I wouldn't mind practicing a play-by-post, so I had time to work out what I was going to say, and that kind of helped.
Did you have like a minimum post rate per day or per week or?
No, not really. It was just a case of I put loads of stuff up, and then people commented because there were comments by that point on Facebook. So we did like a Facebook
so you did it on
group thing.
Facebook?
Yeah, we did a Facebook group.
Ah, okay. I never even thought about using Facebook as a medium for role playing. I don't know what that would do to your advertising preferences.
I don't know, but it was quite good because you could then have like photo albums of certain things. You could have like certain threads to do certain story arcs. And
I suppose
things.
arguably you could probably make a Facebook account for your character, although Facebook are kind of funny about real names now, aren't they?
I don't know.
Yeah. So no, okay, that's interesting. So, what kind of rate did people actually post?
Maybe once every few days.
Okay, yeah, that's
Sometimes it
reasonable
was
for play-by-post.
left for a while, and then eventually it just fizzled out because people weren't responding.
That is the biggest problem I've always found when I run a play-by-forum type game, is that especially when you're waiting for a particular player to respond,
that's
and
the
if,
thing.
and if that player disappears, it's game over. And because you don't know how long to wait. It's not like in real life where if somebody's leaving, you know they've left. With forums, how much respite do you give them? And so what often happens in these types of games is there's loads of activity at the very start when people are active and engaged, and then they go out one night and they forget about it, and then go, oh yeah, I must get round to that, but I've got to do housework, I've got to catch up on this, and then generally these things they begin in this burst of activity and they peter out, and that's why I think you've got to have like a minimum post rate rule. Like if you don't post, if we're waiting for you for more than a day, we move on.
Yeah.
And I think without that it can never really work. But then of course at that point you're basically saying this is a daily commitment,
Which is also not great.
There are nights where there are days where I will find it difficult. I've joined James Norbury's game, right, as an EI agent, and there are going to be days where I'm going to struggle. Mondays and Fridays. Like, I will struggle to do updates on those days. Any other day, I should be able to fit it in at some point on, even if it's only on my phone, because as you know, I don't often fire up the computer. But, I can do it on the phone. That's fine. But yeah, Mondays and Fridays worry me. Is like, because there's a minimum post rate. It's daily. Like, okay, I'll try and do it daily. What about those days when you're away a weekend? And you got things on and you're out of town and stuff. Okay, that's not awkward at all. Yeah, that's kind of the problem with the format. So I guess you could do it like you could do it like every third, like minimum 3 days or something. Maybe that wouldn't kill it. I don't know. What is the right amount? What I will say though is one of the things that's interesting about play-by forum games is I find that you can explore the characters in a lot more depth than you can in an in-person game.
Yes, that's very true.
The first one of these, the very first one was a play-by-post. It was quite mechanically oriented. A very strange game, Avant-Garde it was called.
Oh.
I've never seen it since. But the first time I did an actual RPG on an internet forum, that character, it was this druid. We were playing, I believe, first edition D&D, and I was able to really explore the inner workings of her mind, and really kind of sort of write in a kind of an almost like an authored character way, which is good. Like, good in the sense that I was able to really sort of explore the character in so much more detail. But what I found was that people were then reacting to thoughts of the character rather than what the character was saying or doing, and that created a kind of disconnect. Like, sometimes somebody's response would be a bit jarring because I'd written about thoughts and feelings, those responses to things they shouldn't have seen. That was awkward, and of course it does very much depend on how you write as a person. I remember one of the players very much had this mindset of, no, this is a character who doesn't say much.
Oh,
right. Now that's good in the sense, there's nothing wrong with that as a character who doesn't say much, but you've still got to write that character like it's a book. Otherwise, all you're really doing is, I hit the orc. And that isn't really a good contribution in the sense that, players are part of the story. They're part of entertaining the other players as well. You're a team working together to tell a collaborative story. And consequently, when that player posted, it wasn't enjoyable writing. Thankfully, though, it was always terse. So, you win some.
Meanwhile, hello, Chav Hunter!
Hello!
I just got my prizes, but some things were missing, like the Miles Massacre board game. That is not missing, that is just being sent by the actual sponsor.
Yes, that's being sent directly. We did let them know, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we need to chase that up. I don't know.
Yeah, we can chase it for you.
But yeah, so no, Red Scar are sending that directly. So no, don't worry, don't panic.
Yeah.
It's all good. I can't remember what else you got though. I'm just trying to remember Chaff Hunter's prize money.
You got quite a few things.
It was one of the bigger ones, wasn't it?
But we did have a list.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might have been something else physical, but if I remember rightly, again, that's being sent directly, possibly. But we can check for you.
Okay. Now, what is the next topic?
You tell me, because you literally made these up. I only saw these about 10 minutes ago.
Casino encounters. I literally haven't put any thought into this at all. The idea occurred to me that we have never done an encounter ideas video for casinos.
No, we haven't. Oh, go on, sorry.
I do have a top 5 of RPGs which I tend to fall back on more than others, and I could probably name them.
Do they all start with either C or F or B or R? What?
What's the B?
Blue Rose.
Oh, yes, that will be on there.
Some of Reaper Undead stuff
Says no.
was missing, and Warplot miniatures. So with Warplot, you need to contact the sponsor directly via the Kickstarter, which I believe I put in the email I sent to you.
Reaper Undead stuff missing.
Reaper Undead stuff, we might have to check that.
I haven't sent that to the wrong person, have I?
Uh-oh.
Well, there was, no. I'm sure that's gone out.
We'll have a look. But you've made us panic a bit now. Would you like me to have a look?
No, there's only one lot of the Reaper Undead stuff left, and that was with the Heroic Maps prize. That's going to Uganda.
Mm-mm.
Because I'm giving the Uganda stuff. So the head of the charity is actually going to come visit us over Christmas. So we're gonna.
Oh, that's right.
We're gonna give all the stuff for the Uganda kids at Christmas. Everything else is. There's no other bone stuff down there other than the dragon. That is the wrong way to walk past there.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't want to come in front of you, so. Carry on. Let me check because.
Well, so Chav's saying it might have gone in another person's box. I mean, it's possible.
Excuse me.
Because like everything was double checked, apart from a couple of boxes I didn't double check, and things did get moved when we cleared the table off. So, and I kind of realised afterwards, oh, I didn't double check this box, but I'm still pretty sure it was all right.
Yef. Let's have a look-see.
Whilst you're looking that up, I'm going to think about casino encounters. And of course, we all know, the house always wins. But what kind of characters would you come across in a casino? And so I suppose, and of course, are we talking, fantasy here? When we do our world building, we generally use fantasy, but we could do cyberpunk, seeing as it's kind of the thing of the day. But I think a cyberpunk casino is kind of much the same as modern day, really, isn't it? I mean, you can upgrade the tech of the games, but or do what Star Wars does and just invent new ones. Have you found Chav's prizes?
Yes.
Okay, so I think in terms of NPCs. Look at the customers. And the first thing, if you've ever been to a casino in the real world, and I'm just going to read what Ronnie's saying here, to me the definitive film for that would be Martin Scorsese's Casino, that does get into real detail in how they operate. Okay, I've not seen that, but oh, sorry, I thought you were about to speak.
Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely supposed to have the Undead Dungeon Master Monster collection, yeah, because he got the DMB resin stuff as well. So it's part of the.
Well, it should definitely be in there.
Bundle.
What else was in? Let me have a look at what else is in that, and I'm just gonna see if I can remember it.
Okay.
We've never had a mistake in postage before.
I know.
Don't just sit here in silence.
Okay. Well, I was just waiting for you to find them.
I've not found him yet.
I'm just reading some of the comments. Chatham says, if they did go in another person's box, a person can do a big bad zombie bash. Yes, they can. But even so, we'll have a look and stuff.
Where's the usernames on there?
They're further right. Scroll right. So the only casino encounter I can think of is, of course, from The Last Jedi, and lots of people don't like that bit because they think it's a waste of time, but I still quite liked it, and you can have, like, cyberpunk stuff, and obviously there's a sci-fi with Star Wars, And a casino is something that kind of came about in the Roaring Twenties. You've got you sort of your glamour and bets going on and your roulette, and then it kind of got a bit more evolved with things like Las Vegas and slot machines and all that stuff. And now we've got things like Ladbrokes and various other gambling booths.
I am sure that was in there. I must have made a mistake. I am so sorry.
Well, we can check just in case they're still here somewhere. Or someone else can do a big bad zombie bash.
Sorry. Right, so yeah, for me, I mean, obviously it's going to be about the characters, and the staff. They're often, the nature of the job they're in. They're dressed in their uniform type thing. And you can give a bit of characterization to the staff in a game that the players engage in, but for me, the staff aren't really where the interest could be in terms of NPCs. It's going to be in the customers. And the thing is, I don't know if you've ever been in a casino. Did we go? We went into.
We went into a casino once, yes.
Okay.
Apart from that, no, I've never been in a casino.
Was it a Friday night by chance?
Possibly.
It's because there's something
we
I've
went in
noticed.
for like one game, like £5 worth of chips.
Yeah. And there's something I've noticed on a Friday night in a casino is there'll be usually there's kind of a culture for Chinese people to very much luck is almost religious.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so what you'll often see on a Friday night is if there's a local person to that casino who happens to own a business who is Chinese, might well come in with the week's take, put it all on one roulette game, and I've seen this 7 or 8 times.
Wow.
All their week's take is on one roulette game, and they walk out after that one game no matter what.
Okay.
But it'll be a lot of money on that one game.
Yeah.
There's stacks of chips everywhere. And then they walk out after that one game. So
have you ever seen anybody win?
Yeah.
Okay.
And no. So it's like, this week was a good week. We got paid.
Wow. But you got paid every week.
No, it's luck has to modify the profit.
Wow.
And so that's my first thing. Do you have any cultures that kind of almost, because like in fantasy you could have cultures actually worship luck, a goddess of luck, and how much presence does the goddess of luck have within the casino? And that's kind of where I was going with this. Would there be idols of a goddess of luck around the place, or if she's actually a real goddess, is she banned from the place? Because that could be an interesting kind of twist on the whole take of it.
In Chinese culture, red and gold are lucky, so they put it on red. Very much so. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I suppose, like, maybe if things don't go your way, is there some sort of forfeit to appease Lady Luck?
Yeah, because if you're going to do a sort of a luck religion in your games, then maybe there are rituals, and maybe gamblers who lose blame themselves for not quite getting the ritual right, or.
But I think there is a bit of a danger with casino type encounters, and the same goes for taverns where there's games going on. They can be a bit generic and boring if you're not careful. There's always a table of non-humans playing some game that no one's done before. And it's just like, it's a small passing thought of, they're just playing some random game, but that's not important. Yeah, but that's not important, and there's always some dashing hero who cheats, or you have to get into a game with people in order to, I don't know, save.
One of the things
somebody.
I like doing when I'm running a game is I'm very much a fan of doing a kind of a multimedia RPG session, especially for in-person games, less so online. But sorry, that beer is quite gassy. when I'm doing an in-person game, I like to use unexpected media.
Yes.
And a casino encounter is a good opportunity for that, but I can already see problems. And I do remember one year doing the when I was competing in the Cthulhu Masters role-playing tournament.
Oh,
and
yes.
the GM
Oh,
ran
my
a
God,
game
yes.
based around poker. Although the GM didn't actually know how to play poker, which didn't really help that particular scenario. And also, for plot expedience, then started telling players to go all in. I think he kind of expected that if you play poker, people will be in every hand and it'll be really tense. But actually, in poker, quite often you just fold when you see your cards and stuff, especially with lots of people at the table. Your play rate is quite low, but he's kind of expecting everyone to be in after the first, 2 cards are in your hand, and it's like, no, that's not what people do when they play poker.
That's very Hollywood.
Yeah.
All in. He's going all in. Ooh.
And so what happened in that game was the GM started saying, "I need you to go all in now," and it's like the players going, "But
I've got shit."
Yeah. And the worst part was, ultimately, because that character went all in, they ultimately got killed as a direct consequence of it. And the GM had told them to go all in. And it was like, wow, it was a terrible moment. But, even if you don't do that, games like poker would be, I think, a bad mix for RPGs. Because there's too much time investment to actually play a game of poker. That would kind of take over. But roulette...
Oh yeah, I was going to say if you got like a little plastic roulette thing.
Yeah, like
something.
that is so quick, and you could do that actually at the table, and that could really, really enhance a kind of casino encounter. Blackjack might work, but I've
never actually played blackjack.
Well, I've tried it twice in a casino, lost lots of money very quickly, and thought, no, stop.
Stop.
This is not my game. Back to the roulette table where it takes me an hour to lose a £5.
Wow. Okay. Chavon says blackjack is used a lot in RPGs the most. I've never seen it in RPGs. That's interesting.
Yeah, I've not come across it, but I could see it working because it's a fairly quick to play card game.
Yeah.
And you don't need that kind of plastic roulette wheel or whatever, So I could see that working. So you've got to be careful as to what games you actually would use if you're going to do that whole kind of multimedia approach.
Yeah. You get a lot of dice games and stuff, don't you? In RPGs. Like fantasy.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Because then there's always the issue of what you do about a player who is a card shark. Like if the character is a card shark. So you need to give them mechanisms for kind of cheating. But when is the right time to cheat? Because if you're actually going to... Like something like roulette would be very hard to... You can't cheat, really. Unless you set up hardware to cheat in some kind of heist before the game.
Sabotage the wheel or something.
Yeah, like some kind of... Or magical influence on the wheel if you can.
Yeah, so you can predict what comes up and things.
Yeah. Now that could be interesting. Could that actually really mess up games of chance when you've got what do they call it? That type of magic where you can...
What, divination?
Divination magic.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of... I can't remember if... Well, I don't know if you remember that Hustle episode where they had the horse racing and they set up the telly in the public bit.
The wire stand.
As a few seconds after the live one, so they could see who was winning before they win
it's a very famous... It's based on a book, I believe, called The Wire.
Oh,
and
cool.
I believe...
Hello,
that may have
Kitty.
been a true story originally, but it might have just been fiction. I can't remember. It supposedly goes back to the time of the early days early days of television in America, with there being a delay between West Coast and East Coast or something. But I don't know. It doesn't sound completely right to me. But
when it says it sounds like The Sting.
Yeah, The Sting was also based on The Wire, which was a book first. So if my memory is correct on that.
But yeah, if you had divination, or if you hired a person good at divination to predict what number or what colour it was going to land on, then you could definitely cheat.
Hmm.
That could be quite cool, actually.
Well, maybe when you're divinating around a game, it's the goddess of luck who answers.
Mm.
And maybe she's decided you have bad luck.
Maybe.
Because your offerings weren't enough. And maybe the only way to actually get accurate answers from the goddess of luck
Is
and
to pay more.
gambling is to actually offer more than you could win.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea too.
So, yeah. But, you know, who else would be interesting as an NPC in that kind of environment? Because, of course, you know, the classic, of course, is, you know, Bond Casino Royale. You know, having that kind of sophisticated, suave, debonair character.
Yeah. And you get them in various other movies as well. Like, isn't there one in Kill Bill, for example?
Oh, I'm trying to remember now.
But is that sort of typical, like, very, very posh, fancy ball gowns?
Yeah.
And champagne and stuff.
It's kind of interesting to me because, like, whenever you see a casino in film, it's always posh like that, and I think it's because
money is opulent.
They're probably that posh in Vegas or something. But you go to a casino over here, and it's jeans, t-shirt, and you know, builders.
Yeah. Which I was surprised at because you obviously go into like a betting store over here, and it is as
betting
you said.
store would be
Yeah. But with the actual casino, I was surprised. I thought people would be a little bit more, you know, dressed up.
No,
but apparently not.
No, I mean, I've only been to a casino 5 or 6 times, but it's like the only time it was ever really posh and high class in a casino was the very first time I ever went to a casino, which happened to be at the end of my firm's Christmas outing, and we were all done up posh.
So
and it gave me
accident.
this impression that somehow our hometown had a really posh casino, but actually when I went back to it later, it really wasn't.
You were like, oh, what happened? It was so nice in here before.
Right, let's catch up and chat. So Ronnie says divination or someone with precognition. Thank you. I think that's the word I was looking for earlier.
Yes.
So Chav Hunter, they call it over names in the Cloud Giant. Sorry, they call it over names in the Cloud Giant D&D book, but there is a city with a waterboat casino that uses blackjack, and in Baldur's Gate there's another game that is blackjack, but it's been renamed.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Well, in The Witcher, you can play a dice game which is basically poker.
Okay.
So
is that using those poker dice where it's like 10?
No. It's still 6-sided dice, but you have about 8 of them, I think.
Right.
No.
So
Sorry,
it's sort of like
7.
Yahtzee.
I've never actually played Yahtzee, but you're still...
You match pairs.
Well, it's not just matching pairs. You're still doing it in terms of you can get 3 of a kind, you can get a pair.
Oh, I see.
So it's still poker, but it's with dice and just with 6 numbers.
Got
so,
you.
There we go. People do it. They use minute illusion to cheat.
Yes, a casino would need to have
Some
anti-illusion
kind,
magic, wouldn't
Anti-illusion,
it? Or they go
anti-divination magic.
bankrupt
Yeah,
very quick.
definitely. It proves that casinos don't have to be land-based. Could be on the water or even in the air. Yes, I agree. Especially if they're posh. If you've got something like suspended in the air, therefore you can only get to it by a certain way, that already proves exclusivity. And
yeah, well, it's kind of that whole thing of being off the coast and out of jurisdiction, isn't it?
Yeah,
you see that
yeah.
in a lot of pop culture. Sleeping Dogs did that with the whole casino off the coast kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the I'm just trying, because if you think about it, apart from Vegas, most of the famous casino cities in the world are coastal.
Where else is there? Apart from Las Vegas.
You've got Monaco.
Yeah.
And isn't Cannes quite famous for casinos? You've got now I'm gonna guess here, but I'm gonna guess Abu Dhabi.
Oh yes, that's true.
Singapore.
But then there are lots of cities on the coast.
That's true.
So, the casinos in D&D have anti-magic fields. Yes, no cheating with magic. and apparently I need to play Yahtzee.
Let's just roll 5 dice. Start pairing.
Yeah.
Basically.
So essentially the mechanics for Godlike, but there's no role playing game.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. So yeah, now that was my thought. I was thinking casinos. I've never I know other people must have put them in their games, but I don't think I ever have. There's always been that kind of card games in the tavern type thing.
Well, I think the difference is you've got your different types of betting. So casinos are kind of more posh because you're betting on games and cards coming up, or a roulette stopping at some point. But then if you go to somewhere poorer, for example, people are betting on if someone's going to beat somebody up.
Oh, you mean like pit fighters?
Yeah, pit fighting, or fighting to the death, something more kind of physical, I guess. Or they can lift these weights and stuff.
Kind of there is that distinction, isn't there, between a gambling and a casino?
But casinos are still gambling.
They are, but it's kind of slight. Like I don't know. Is it just our culture that kind of separates the two? Where you get like betting on sports being very different to a casino where you're betting on card games and dice.
Well, wait, are you talking about as an RPG still, or are you talking about real life?
Well,
because in real life, there's still like you get the really posh horse racing stuff in Ascot, for example, compared to.
That's true. In some ways, gambling is posh. Certainly, a lot posher in parts of Britain than it is at our local casinos.
Yeah. Whereas if you get like slot machines or.
I was thinking, what's the fantasy equivalent of a slot machine as well? Would it be like those traditional pub games? Like you get some really weird old games in some pubs. Like we saw one actually when we went to the Phipps Brewery. Do you remember? They had one of the weird kind of Skittles, bar Skittles.
Oh,
and that's not even the only weird kind of game you get in pubs like that. That kind of there's some really obscure ones. That was a very
weird pub. Like the layout was so bizarre. Very, very odd.
I think I might have to do a bit of research into some traditional pub games and kind of find out what the kind of different kind of things are, because there are various ones, and I think if you're going to do a fantasy casino, you need an equivalent of the slot machine. I think they would be the right thing to use, but I don't know enough about them. 5-finger dodge, is that like doing the whole knuckle?
Oh yeah. I'm assuming it's this.
Oh yeah, that one. Ronnie says, I think we have an idea in our head of what a casino looks like, so if it doesn't look like that, we don't consider it a casino, even if it is essentially the same thing as a casino.
True. I think casinos can look different from each other though. So again, you've got the really posh, upmarket, fancy thing, champagne, caviar, money, rolling everywhere. But then you might have something more modern with lots of neon lights and crazy stuff going on, lots of stimulation. So that's different in some ways, but it's still a casino. More fast-paced, maybe.
It sounds more like the arcades on Clacton or Southend or something.
Well, yeah, but, that's what modern casinos are kind of like nowadays. You've got, lines and lines of slot machines, for example, in Vegas, amongst, obviously, various other things. But that is one of the big things. It's like you go and put your money in the slots. Whereas, back in the day, obviously, slot machines were not a thing.
Yeah, well, I think if you're going to do a fantasy casino, you got to have an analog for the slot machines. So I'm going to research that.
Maybe it's some kind of magical mosaic wall thing, and you have to choose a symbol to put your hand on as it lights up.
That's quite cool.
Or something like
It'd
that.
Be like one of those dance arcade things. Now we're going into an arcade.
Basically.
Right?
Yeah.
So we've got the dance thing. We need an air hockey equivalent. So is that going to be a little air sprite? Right, you need your shooter game with the dinosaurs. Now what would that be in a fantasy world?
A little crossbow.
Yeah, crossbow.
Shooting chickens.
Maybe a mechanical wheel that has like a disc thing that comes up that you have to hit as it rotates around.
Oh, I just envisaged, you get them almost like in Funfest, but like a fantasy version. If you've got somebody like attached to a wheel like this and they spin around,
Oh,
and you
you
have to throw
actually put a
knives at
person.
them. Yeah,
Well,
throw
it
knives
was-
at them.
that would be a very expensive game in
Yes.
lives.
Yes. Chapman says, all it needs is nerves of steel and be good with perception, sleight of hand. Yes, there's a great scene in the IT crowd where Moss is actually very, very good at it. He
Oh, yeah,
does
yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
When he says now it sounds like Merlin, the old electronic handheld game.
The doing that, I guess.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it.
New.
Right, let's look up what the next topic should be. So,
I bet it's charitable goblins.
yes, it is.
Get it? Because I bet. Because
Oh.
they did casinos.
Well, this was something I was thinking about because when you come across a goblin in D&D, what's your first reaction? Because I know for a lot of players, it's roll initiative. Oh, do I have more bit? I do
Yes.
have more bit. It's quite average and gassy. It's not great bit.
Well,
But,
it depends. For me, it depends how many there are. If there's just one, then I don't automatically think, oh, roll initiative, roll initiative. But at the same time, it's like, it's a goblin, it's probably gonna try and rob me or manipulate me to get lost or something.
yeah, see, now, I was thinking about this because do you remember the Trinity campaigns we did?
Yes.
And there was some goblin encounters in those, which happened twice, I believe. I used this encounter where the goblins ambushed you and gave you things. They took pity on the adventurers because the adventurers were so down on their luck by that point, were so beaten that the goblins actually gave the players food.
I do vaguely remember something like that.
Yeah, it was the ultimate humiliation because like you'd failed so badly that even the goblins wouldn't hit you anymore. It was just like you were a charity case for them, which was hilarious at the time. But I just kind of put this into like the topic list this week because it kind of got me thinking about the age-old problem that I've ranted about many a times, which is the player perception, good versus evil. It's a monster, charging, kill it. But also, what do goblins think when they see player characters? What's their thought process?
Oh, fuck, I'm about to get shafted.
And I think, if your players always attack on sight, then that's exactly what the goblin must be thinking. Like, word must have gotten around. So the goblin's instinctive reaction isn't to stand and fight and wait for half of them to die before running away. Surely it's to run away to begin with.
Yeah, run away and hide.
And that actually makes goblins a more scary opponent.
What, because they're going and hiding?
Yeah, because it's no longer... Like, I don't think you should ever have a fair fight with a goblin. And I think that's pretty much the way they were intended to be as well. Like, when you read descriptions of goblins in monster manuals and stuff, they don't fight fair. They're tricky. They always say things like tricky and cunning.
Yeah.
And I think all too often in RPGs, there's this tendency that, oh, it's a monster, it's in the room, you want initiative, you attack first. And I think, no, it's a goblin. You shouldn't even know that you're about to have a fight with a goblin when it unfolds. And when you are fighting them, I don't think you should ever know how many you're fighting.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's kind of the point of them. And I think they're too often used wrong.
I see them more as setting up traps rather than actually showing themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of... There are a couple of problems with traps in games. First of all, it assumes a dungeon. In a way. I know it doesn't, not explicitly, but... a dungeon has that concept of trap. A forest, yes, there are lots of traps you can do in a forest. But all of a sudden, that hex having a trap on, or that square having a trap on, feels... Well, it's the middle of a blinking forest. What's the odds of someone stepping in it? Whereas a dungeon with its more confined space, traps work better.
Yes.
but often they feel so out of theme, and and especially in a dungeon with those confined spaces, if you've got something like a bit trap, what leaves the traps armed? People are using whatever this dungeon is. It's in use because it's got monsters down there. Therefore, why are there traps? It's like, how often when you leave a room in your house do you forget you've left a light on, or the door open when it's cold and you want to stop wind. If we can't remember this ourselves in our modern world, how do you think a monster's going to cope having a trap in their house? It's going to go kaboom long before an adventurer turns up. That's kind of my point.
Maybe you could put that into an encounter and confuse the PCs.
Not dead monster. There's no monsters in the dungeon. Just lots of splattered and surprised looking orc faces.
Yes.
Slowly sliding down a wall.
Yes.
Sure. Coming right up.
I mean, I put magic traps in dungeon once, and that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer to think of traps more along the lines of puzzles. Like, I like to put things into, like, if I'm doing a dungeon-esque style encounter, I like there to be a puzzle to be solved. Now, sometimes it's a puzzle on how to kill a monster, like the last miniatures game we did when I had the Shadow Dragon.
Yes.
And I put lots of portals on the map, and the idea was you need to use your ranged attacks to kill this thing. It's too powerful for you. But as long as you do that, it's just going to keep flying at you arrogantly, and you use the portals.
It was tense.
So thank you. Yeah, and that was the point. It was meant to be. It was a dragon, but and so I like to use puzzles like that, and I tend to think in terms of mechanics of a puzzle rather than mechanics of a trap, because it can be very hard, I think, to think up of traps and puzzles on the fly.
Yes, I
need
agree.
Planning
I agree.
to be properly integrated into your environment.
I was pretty proud of a trap I did do, though. Which was a magic trap where there is a pit, but essentially there is a teleport at the bottom of the pit into the ceiling.
Okay,
so if you imagine portal, it's going to just get faster and faster and faster to the point where you can't...
Extraction would be fatal.
Yeah, exactly. So you eventually just starve to death.
That is harsh. But you'd hit terminal velocity at what, 127 miles an hour, is it, or something like that?
Yeah.
Now, if you edge your way closer, you could survive a fall at 127 miles an hour, but to do it, you would need to be unconscious.
Wow. Okay.
Well, the point is you need to be able to flop sufficiently, and I think consciously you just won't let yourself do that. But like if there's any resistance as you land, those parts of your body that you tent will snap. So if you wait for the person who's starving to lose consciousness, then push them sideways out the trap with like a gust of wind or something. They'd lose a load of hit points. They'd be down on hit points. Maybe you need to get them while they're sleeping. End of the first day. Make sure they're on full health because they're gonna take injury on landing. I may be overthinking this.
I think you are overthinking it.
Let's catch up on chat.
Okay. Chav Hunter says, what do you think of the new Kickstarters that have new magic item cards for RPG games?
I love magic item cards. I think, didn't I buy the D&D ones? Yeah, I did. I've been using them.
Yes.
But even before I bought the official ones, my last campaign that I ran in person, I would make magic item cards. There's this bit of software. I did a video on this a long time ago in the infancy of this channel. But there's this bit of software that's actually designed for making Magic the Gathering cards. And I used to use that, but to make magic items. And I've never played Magic the Gathering, but it was a good bit of software for making a card-shaped thing, and then I just do sheets of 9 of them at a time and print them out.
I have played Magic the Gathering a couple of times. I honestly think it's overrated.
Yeah, I've never played it. I just used that bit of software for designing cards. For making magic items.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think you were missing out.
Oh, okay. one of the things I really like about magic items is, first of all, as a player, it's really nice to sort of have a bundle of stuff that is your character. And if you, like, I like to use the coins as a physical prop, because one of the things characters are terrible at is small change, right? Now, if you say to characters, okay, yeah, sure, you can buy that, and it's like, let's say as a GM, you decide to charge them 5 gold pieces.
Yeah.
Now, you might have done that 30 times, and they might have started the campaign with 2 gold, and and spent all the gold, they got no money, and yet they're still buying a small change.
Another thing that kind of bothers me a bit is where, if you haven't got really any way of keeping record of it, but you get a lot of places where you're staying or food, and it's literally like, okay, 2 silver pieces here, 1 copper piece there, and it's like...
Well, D&D is kind of a fool to itself for having 4 different coinages for a start. One of the things I was doing, and maybe I need to just package this up in generic way, but when I was writing After Forever After, I was actually going through medieval prices for things and converting it into a consistent currency. So I had 1 coinage, or 1 monetary system,
which is crowns.
And yeah, of course, and then working out what the prices for things actually should be. Whereas D&D kind of said, well, we're going to have copper because something's a low value. But I think the problem was it started with gold coins and said, excuse me, like if it's 1,000 gold coins for a suit of armour, and then they thought, well, suit of armour turns out to be worth more than the house. So we need to have a smaller denomination, and then a smaller and smaller. And so they kind of got themselves trapped, whereas I kind of went from the other way. I said, what's the smallest value? Was 1D, I think it is, because old pounds was D.
No, pennies.
Pennies, yeah. But it was written as D.
Yeah, pennies were D, not pounds.
Yeah. Pounders.
You said pounds.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Anyway, the point, and then it's all shillings and whatever.
Shillings
so
and
I came up with this spreadsheet that basically converted medieval money to the currency of the game. So maybe at some point I need to sort of finish that work and actually kind of release that.
We are all nodding. Finish the damn system. You can do it tomorrow when I'm not here.
No, I've got too much to do. So
I was kind of joking, but write the whole thing tomorrow.
Now, where was I going before you completely distracted me?
You were talking about your currency and stuff, and how D&D fell into the trap of having multiple values and stuff.
Yes, but why was I talking about that?
Because reasons, magic cards.
Right, so anyway, going back to my original point, I like my players to have a bundle of stuff. I used coins, I have loads of metal coins, and I give them magic item cards, and I think it helps to have, especially, like, it's the magic spell cards. I have loads of those for the different classes in D&D, because they're just so much more convenient than the book to have that list of cards, and then you say, right, these are the ones I got prepared, and that's kind of my spell book. And I think item cards are just magic item cards are just kind of natural extensions of that. And at some point I will get around to buying standard equipment cards or something. So you got that too, so you sort of remember what you got. And I think if you've got a pet, you need a model on your character sheet or something to remind you you've got that pet as well.
Yes.
And yes, I know it needs to be finished. You still haven't played it anyway.
Yeah, Ronnie, you haven't played
Everyone
it.
asked for corporations, so in the latest campaign we're playing, so you've missed out again.
What else is there in the chat? I've lost where we got to. Chatham says, I like homebrew with great art and good ideas. Ryan's asking if you did generic magic cards or for a specific game.
Well, I have magic item cards for D&D, because that's just the stuff that's in the DM's.
Yeah, but in terms of
thing.
the cards that you made.
The cards that I made were just stuff made up for my world. It was a 5e game, but I just made them up for my adventure. You see, and there was one particular weapon that they had to make. They had like they had instructions on how to make this thing, but they had to keep making it. So every time they upgraded the weapon, I gave them a replacement card and stuff, and so it was quite cool.
Okay. They make them for D&D, but also make it so it's got enough freedom to add to any fantasy game. That's cute. Only problem I can see is that plenty of games don't use D&D equivalent spells, so they may have limited use.
Yeah, I mean, magic items would be less useful going... Well, magic in general, it doesn't transfer system.
No.
Like,
No.
I've got cards for 5e.
Mm-hmm.
I make cards for my own games. I probably wouldn't buy cards for any other game. Which is strange, because I could see it being useful in like something like this, for example. Right, we've got a corporation right here, and one of the bugbears for corporation that I have is, as a GM, now I've got a lot of the splat books, right, and I know you've read some of them, but if I get a game of this going with my friends, I'll have enough trouble explaining the equipment in here.
Yeah, let alone all the other books that have extra equipment.
And so they're going to be creating. People will be creating characters, but never using this stuff. Like these splat books rarely get used, and that's kind of disappointing. It's one of the reasons why I was quite looking forward to playing with James Norbury, because it's like, I've got the books. He wrote the books. We can actually use some of this stuff. And it's not really the fault of corporation. It's just the nature of a game that isn't the popular game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a case of he put a load of stuff together in one book, and actually I really like that the setting material is in the core book.
Yeah, everything you need
such
is
a good
so much.
idea.
And I love the little inspiration pieces.
Yeah.
Like here is this entire page.
It's just inspiration.
It's a transcript of a mission, and it is just inspiration. And you get these little tables. I just went past one actually here. Plot ideas 1 through 15.
Yeah. But then more ideas come to you. A lot of these splat books are based on specific types of characters. So you've got your EI, you've got your Comoros. So naturally, if you're going to play those characters, you might buy the book as well. You've got things like the incorporated ones, which are more like compilations. You've got Machines of War, which is good for DMs.
This is the ones that are to hand. So, I mean, this isn't... It's alright. Let's go through this. We have 2 rule books, weirdly enough.
We haven't... Yeah. Well, because one's mine, one's yours.
Yes. So Cities of Gold. This is a book for Eurasian Incorporated Agents, right? We have Incorporated Volume 2. Now, somewhere in here we have Incorporated Volume 1. There it is. Now, this, as you say, this is a compilation. So he does a newsletter, or used to do a newsletter. I haven't seen that for a long time. Do newsletter with little rules and little mini system extensions that come to you via email.
And there's also...
And then you compile them into 2 books.
Yeah, there's scenarios in here as well, like the different Christmas games that he comes up with. That's the point. Is your game going to be Christmas themed?
Oh.
Your Discord game? If so, that'd be brilliant.
I have no idea. It's called Operation Wolf.
It couldn't be either one. I have suddenly got an urge to sneeze, so I need to sort that out.
So have I.
Yes, but seriously, it's coming off.
Alright, so there's Machines of War, which is, if I remember rightly... Yeah, it's equipment. It's like the ultimate splat book type thing. We have 2 copies again because we each had one. And we have the Comoros book. And there's a few more that have now come out in hardback, so I will pick them up. Because I was waiting for them to come out in hardback before getting them. So, yeah, when you think about that, so yeah, I mean, the 2 of these are very definitely books you would buy if you were making an agent of that corporation. But these are all very kind of general stuff, and I wouldn't imagine players collecting that. And if the players don't collect it, unless they're really into the game, but it's probably the GM that's going to have this stuff, which means the players never will, and that is such a shame. But it's natural. It's what will always happen. But it is my biggest frustration with anything that isn't 5e. And yeah. So how do you deal with that? I don't think you can. You can take the Studio Agate approach, which
Studio Agate.
Yeah, I'm just looking for it. I don't actually. I've got 2 copies of the game, and none of them are.
Well, there's a bit there. It's kind of jumbled.
There's none of the Fate Forge stuff.
Oh, Fate Forge. That is down here.
Oh, it's in that big stack there. But
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Yeah. But they to play that. You get 2 books. One is spells, purely spells.
Grimoire.
And the other is everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of need both to play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of one book. It's just into. I mean, they couldn't physically do that into one book actually, but.
Well, they could. It would be expensive as hell.
Well, it would be huge, and the binding wouldn't last.
That's true.
It's just because it would just simply be too thick. So, yeah, I don't know what the right answer is. In terms of making a game, and as an author of RPGs, you need to be able to generate additional revenue from players who get into it. So you need to be able to provide them additional content.
Yeah, I quite like the Fate approach, which is basically you have one book, whether it's regular Fate or Fate Accelerated or Dresden Files. So you have one rule book for everybody, and then if you want, I can't remember what it's called, but there was like a way of tweaking stuff. That's an extra book. If you want a certain setting like Jade Punk, then that's another book. So you've got everything you need in one thing. But then if you want to do extra stuff as well, then great, go for it.
Yeah, but as if I'm gonna, like, for example, if I'm gonna publish After Forever After at any point, what's the right model to do it? I want to try and get do the best RPG book I can, but if that takes off and people are into it, what do you do in terms of additional content? What is the right thing to do? I honestly don't know. And there are some RPG companies now that are they kind of by design multiple books are planned for launch. I mean, look at the RPG just got cancelled by Cubicle 7, the One Ring.
One Ring Second Edition.
One Ring Second Edition will not be a thing. Cubicle 7 is a license issue. But they had several books prepared and fully edited, ready to go. And they had more in late stages of production. They're months away from the actual main launch of this major new system when it got cancelled. But then think about that. Multiple books ready to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, the original One Ring, which is over there, you've got 2 books.
Yeah.
Which fit a very similar thing, mind the dice at the top.
Yeah.
You've got your player's handbook and your DM's guide.
Yeah.
Same in Call of Cthulhu, you have the investigator's handbook and the keeper's guide. It's following this formula of 2 books. Try not to bend the paperbacks next to it.
I'm doing it. I'm good.
Whereas the only major system I can think of which breaks away from that is the new Star Wars Fantasy Flight.
Do?
Well, for example, Edge of the Empire there, you've got a massive book which has everything in it you need to play.
That is quite big. So
no DM's guide or anything like that. It's the core rules.
But they made their money on the dice.
True. Yes, I was going to get to that. But you've got just regular core rules, and then in terms of different adventure modules and a few extra classes and stuff, they came in separate, much smaller books.
3 variants of the game.
They did Age of Rebellion, they did Edge of the Empire, and they did Force and Destiny.
Yeah, so Age of the Empire is basically your Han Solo game.
Yes, which is my favourite.
Force and Destiny is the Jedi game.
Which I wasn't bothered about. And then Age of Rebellion is playing Rebels. Which, yeah, fine, whatever.
But what if you want to make an adventuring party and you've got a player who wants to be a rebel pilot, a player that wants to be a bounty hunter / smuggler, and you got a player who wants to be a Jedi?
Well, you can have them in the same setting, if you will. It's just that they work a little bit differently.
Yeah, but that's 3 books.
Well, no, you can still have one book, but in terms of
Well, if I wanted to play a
tone
Jedi...
and emphasis, you can have Jedi in Edge of the Empire, for example.
Yes, but where's my rules?
True,
They're in Force and
sort of.
Destiny.
They're sort of, yeah, mostly. Mostly. I see what you're saying.
So,
Okay. Warhammer then.
Right.
One book.
1 book. So how does Cubicle 7 expect to keep the franchise going if me as a loyal customer buys this once and never buys it again?
Because this is a remake or a revamp of first edition. You've got all the renowned
So I buy this.
chapters and modules and stuff like the Enemy Within that they're going to be doing.
So if I buy this,
Yes.
2 years later, how much disposable income have they missed by not having a second book? I would strongly suspect there will be a second book.
Yes.
There'll be.
I imagine there'll be some sort of monster manual or a spell guide.
Exactly. You know, it's just that it's 1 book at the moment.
Yeah.
Is the only thing.
Yep.
It's kind of what's the right way to do it. Let's have a look at the chat.
Hello,
see if they
Fuke.
have answers. So hello indeed. Yes, we can.
Read it. And it was the toolkit book for Fate I was thinking of. I've never done it.
Okay, so Fuke is at a mental hospital. Just wanted to take my limited time with cell phone and say hello to our beautiful gents and beautiful guests and awesome chat. Well, we love you, Fuke. We believe in you, and you
Get
just
well
take
soon.
the time you need.
Yes.
Ronnie says, I personally prefer one main book that doesn't need any others in order to run the game, and then any extras are just extra detail
And
that
fluff,
can be
yeah.
fun to have, but not overly necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as Fuke says, splat books are not necessary for Rifts, Ether, Scope, and Silver Age Sentinels D20 games are 1 book, so is the Big Blue Rifts book. Well, the thing is, you only need 1 book to play Corporation. I'm into it, therefore I bought more.
Good example then. I finally thought of a good example that you'd like. Shadows of Estron. I couldn't actually see it on here. I haven't got everything for Shadows of Estron. It's a bit weird. I've got some of the splat books. But yes, they have 3 main books. Prologue, Book 1, Universe...
I've got the prologue here.
Yeah, Book 2... something else, I can't remember. But basically, you really only need Book 1. Like, this prologue thing is literally just flavour.
Yeah.
It gives you an idea of what kind of stuff is in there, but you can't play the book with that. There's some characters in there, there's some details about poison and stuff. And then the second book, Travel, or Travelling or something, that gives you sort of more rules as well to play with. But you don't need it. Then you've got all this cool stuff about, well, if you just watch the Con Plus stream, you would know. Things about the occult.
Oh yes.
There's a few adventure modules you can run or scenarios. There's things like the maps that I have, and various different sort of flavour things. So
this stuff's just so pretty.
it is. That's why we're kind of hypnotised by it.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yes, my point is, you don't need all this stuff to play at all. But if you do get it, it gives you a lot of nice extra things.
So how about this then? There's a plan for AFA if ever I write the damn thing.
Okay.
So
listen carefully.
1 big rule book with everything you need to play, but it's just rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then
so you're thinking setting in a different book?
Setting in a different book. Because not everyone will want the setting.
Well, no, but not everyone will want the rules either, necessarily. Not as a book of their own.
But,
But
see,
I can
setting
see...
isn't necessarily a global thing either. And
No,
I like
no,
the idea of like occultism is a book. Now
Yeah.
that's actually an adventure there, but what if occultism is a book?
Mhm.
Right? If magic of certain types is a book,
Yeah.
magic of maybe other types is a different book.
Yeah, I like that.
So you give some basic stuff of all the different things in the rule book, so you can flavour any game to anything. But then for the detail, you get the book for that thing. Is that cash grab?
No. No, because you just said that you've got the rules. At least one person will need the setting to actually run it. So that's 2 books, which is normal for a DM. Normally they have both books. That's fine. What about the monster manual?
Well, again,
Will
that's
that be in the
down to
rules?
regions of a world.
Okay then.
Like because you get different things in different parts of the world. So if you've got a region, and that gives you everything you need to generate characters from that region, gives you monsters from that region, gives you background, lore, and potentially even some unique items and magic.
Okay.
And then that's a setting book.
Okay.
I'm going to write this now.
I like that idea. Yes, you are. You're going to write this book.
So I wanted to talk about the what burden is on the players in terms of the fun. I often say the job of the GM, and the GM is a player, but the job of the GM is to make sure the players are having fun. It's less about telling the story and more about ensuring everyone at the table has a good time. So what burden is therefore on the player in terms of telling the story and also ensuring everyone has a good time? Because there are different expectations from different players about what a GM should do. It's why the whole session 0 is so important. And I was reading horror stories of GMs in the last week, and like there are excuse me, there are some GMs who've had some terrible experiences with being GM, that players who were just an absolute nightmare. And it's not necessarily that they were a problem player, they just had a different expectation, and consequently it created conflict.
Yeah, but that's why you talk about it in session 0.
In the perfect world, yes, but quite often you don't get the chance. If you're doing a one-shot, if you're doing a convention game, there was one horror story I read where a guy was hadn't GM'd in a decade, but his pub was doing a games night.
Okay.
And the GM cancelled, so they asked this person, could you GM? They did. And then at the end of the game, the 2 experienced players really started criticising the GM. But they were criticising him for... One of them was trying to alpha game. Like, they were saying, like, the GM said, okay, what's your plan? Do you want to discuss your plan before you go do your mission? And apparently it did take too long. But one of the players was giving the plan, but was expecting resolution as he was giving the plan. So he was putting players somewhere and was expecting dice rolls to be made and things to be unfolding. And that would have got the game going, sure. That was what that player wanted. But it wasn't what that... it was taking agency away from the other players by saying, this is the plan that this person's making up, and that's where you are.
Yes. I'm not a massive fan of that full stop. The whole kind of... The game stops and it's like, right, discuss your plan. And then resume. I don't really do that.
It's something I'm beginning to learn. Like, there are some groups that can plan, and there are
others
some
just
that can't.
do not. The majority of groups I've been in do not plan, or they can't plan, or we can't think of anything.
Yeah.
And it's like...
and that Yeah, and that's something that I remember in our first corporation game, the Boston Tea Party. It's something that really threw me because I hadn't really, because I'd played so many years with like Stuart in a group. Basically, it really threw me, and like I was talking about this earlier actually to somebody today, that the second and third episodes of the Boston Tea Party campaign I felt quite weak because you didn't / couldn't / weren't planning. And so, I kind of turned it around, I think, on the fourth session where I kind of realised, okay, you need a bit more leading and a bit more railroad in terms of the story arcs, because you couldn't do that as a group.
For me, it was more, I needed more setting established so I know what is possible for me to do. Whereas I find if a DM stops the game and says, right, do your plan, that's normally just before the climax where you know what the stakes are and you know what you have to do. It's just how to do it.
Yeah.
So,
whereas, like, taking a more open-world approach and you know, being willing to make things up on the fly doesn't substitute for not having knowledge of what the world is before. Yeah, anyway, the point is, as I was reading some of these horror stories, what was occurring to me was actually the GM is a player. And whilst I've always said it's the GM's job to ensure the players are having fun, they're really just the coordinator of that. And actually, I think a lot of what goes on around the table is up to the players too.
Yes.
In terms of managing the table. Like, we think of it as it's the GM's job, but there's been times as a player where I've stepped back or stepped forward to either give someone a spotlight or to assert spotlight over somebody who was stealing it from others. And as a player, you're also responsible for other people's fun. We touched on this earlier with the forum post when I mentioned the person who wrote very terse messages didn't really add to the narrative. It's the same thing. It's the player has a contribution to make to the quality of the game. And there is such a thing as an inexperienced player, and that's fine, and there is such a thing as a bad player, and that's less fine. And we really kind of need to come up with a vocabulary for these things for them to become, to kind of raise awareness, if you like. Like, we have lots of vocabulary around GMing a game, but less so around the role of a player in enhancing the narrative of the game.
Yeah.
And that was really just my thought on it.
It was a big thought.
Yes, a big and deep one that doesn't actually give you that vocabulary. So let's catch up and chat. Yes, we're all hoping Vuke does well. Ronnie says, have had problems from players, but also players assuming hand-holding, which for me, I will only do so far depending on the experience level of the players. I think that the lack of planning was possibly due to the sheer anarchy we were experiencing, which made things difficult to plan ahead as chaos was all-consuming. Was hilarious, but not conducive to planning. Yeah. Right. Let us do this.
Oh, do I not get to say my thing?
Yes. Let me put this back on the wall.
Well, because you said your thing, and then you went straight to the chat, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, what I was going to say was that I really like, as a GM, setting something up and then letting the players just, synchronize with each other and bounce off each other, and they're doing all the work.
Yeah.
I've told them the premise of what's happening, and I quite like sitting back and letting them do stuff, and then lapping up ideas of what they're saying, what they're doing. And it's nice. Obviously, as a GM, you kind of, like with players, you come in more, you step back, you kind of change the scene, or you coordinate something, but Yeah, they're definitely a player. They've got like certain responsibilities to make sure that the players are coordinated. But in terms of fun, yeah, no, it's players can stop other players having fun, and the opposite. Like if you've got a couple of players that really like bounce off each other nicely, that's fantastic. And then I've seen the complete opposite where they just don't talk to each other, or so the gym kind of puts them together. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's like you mentioned right there. You like giving the players a premise and then them running.
Not all the
which way
time.
they run.
Not all the time, but at certain points I do. Yeah.
But what? I mean, there are some players that will always be able to run with that. I think I'm one of them. I think. Touch wood. But there are. But sometimes a group, and maybe it's not actually down to the players. Maybe it's down to the player/character combination.
Yes, I agree.
There are sometimes
yeah.
groups where it just won't click.
Yes, I know. And I choose my points carefully and think, okay, how would the characters work together or not work together in these situations? So I don't do it all the time, but when I do it, I enjoy the, what I have sown, like, that kind of thing. So.
Okay.
Everyone does need to keep track of their mental health. Yes.
Completely agree. And they also need to keep track of the most awesome people in the world. They are Russell Higgins, Jolly Mangina, Mark Prelful, Brandon Fishwick, Umber, Dave Poirier, Fuke Enterprises, Nate Hampshire, AJ, Philip Bate, Elizabeth Chiverdickel, and David Gaskin, all of which have a permanent place on our wall in our studio, which is sort of our lounge and dining room. But it's upstairs. We have a very strange house arrangement.
No, we don't. It's
We do.
perfectly normal and logical.
For gamers.
Yes, because we're gamers. Hello.
Yes. The biggest room in the house, which is like a quarter of the house,
It's a
we
games room.
use once every 2 weeks.
Well, to be fair, there's still a bit of Complus stuff in there, so we haven't used it a lot for a while, but around my birthday in particular, we're going to use it quite a lot.
Yes. Alright. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. The chat. And we'll see you next Monday, actually. Monday, we're on Pear of Geeks 2.
Yes, we are.
We are playing a game
Corporation.
But we're also playing Osric, all mixed
Yes.
into one game. And we will be back next Friday with another chat where we talk about stuff like this. If you can stomach that, then don't forget to subscribe, like, hit the little bell icon actually on the channel. That, I think, is the one that lets you know, that gives you emails when we go live.
It does emails and YouTube notifications.
Yes. And I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, we have been kind of annoying everyone by putting a video out every day for several weeks now, actually over a month
Yes.
now. I think that's about to end because I think we've just run out of videos. So
Yes.
it's back down to weekly videos on Pog 1.
Yes.
So sorry about that, but you were getting a video every day, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think so.
Alright. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.